Director here at the Barrie Chamber of Commerce.
Morning, everyone. Thank you very much again for coming, and I thank you to all of our guests today. Almost a full house, just missing Mr. Broussard, but fortunately somebody's got to run the government. So while you guys are goofing off, he's doing the work. In the meantime, we've got a number of things sort of going on. I'm not going to steal Rocco's thunder with a few of the Canada United things, but we do have a local collaboration that begins with a webinar on August 11th at 1 p.m. Which sort of gets us more involved in a local virtual marketplace. And also we have the Barrie Together recovery kits available here at the Barrie Chamber. And hopefully Todd will remember me at the end, and I'll give you a brief update on our upcoming golf day in September. But without taking too much thunder, I'll give it back to Todd.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Broussard has reached out, and he assured us that Mr. Shipley was more than capable of handling it today while he's live on site at Barrie Chrysler, or 400 Chrysler. So with that, in recent months, we have seen the true spirit of Team Canada as every level of government has come together to ensure that Canadian families and businesses are helped throughout the economic implications of COVID-19. They have announced supports, listened to feedback, and then made adjustments to meet the needs of Canadians. The cooperation of all involved has made the decision-making process faster than we've ever seen before. With our region now in stage 3, we know that the majority of our businesses are now open, but the global situation continues to evolve, and the task of guiding Canadians throughout COVID-19 is far from over. Government is still actively seeking input to ensure that the needs are met and to address the issues faced by various sectors and our communities. I will introduce each of our panelists shortly, and then I'll ask them to provide a brief update from their level of government, after which we'll proceed to the Q&A. We did accept questions in advance of today's session, and we encourage you to submit yours as well. To submit a question, please choose the Submit Question to Moderator button on your Zoom platform, type out your question, and I will read it to our panelists. Without further delay, we will start with the top of my list, and on the list is Barrie Mayor Jeff Lehman. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity again to join you for this town hall, and thanks to the Chamber, of course, for organizing it, and for Rocco Rossi for being here. It's a delight to have our special guest with us. I'm going to start with very positive news, which is just sort of breaking the the July jobs report from Statistics Canada landed about half an hour ago. The really great news locally is Barrie has the highest employment rate in the entire country. Our census metropolitan area, the Barrie area, has an employment rate of 66.5%. Our unemployment rate dropped just over 1% to 9.7%. But that employment rate figure is really interesting because that basically says that we have a larger proportion of our population currently employed than any other city in the country. And so I wanted to start this morning really by thanking many of the folks that are on this call for your work in fighting through COVID as a business. We can be extremely proud, especially today, of the way Barrie's economy has weathered the crisis and is now recovering in many ways, one of the leading lights in the country. That being said, the jobs picture is still one of an economy in difficulty with elevated rates of unemployment that reflect the fact that there have been serious job losses, and there remain companies that are much smaller than they were, organizations that have had to close or remain closed. And as has emerged throughout the crisis, I think as the economists have started to diagnose the issues and looked at what's going on, of course, some sectors are hit much harder than others, and that's certainly true locally. One of the things we're watching right now very closely is the fact that the unemployment has disproportionately affected lower wage earners. It has also disproportionately affected certain sectors, and some of those would come as no surprise to anybody in this call. Small business, tourism in particular, hospitality, food and accommodation, although some of that is recovering now fairly well. Things like culture, anything that involves a mass gathering has certainly struggled. And there are, unfortunately, in the last little while as well, some new economic headwinds, such as aluminum tariffs that landed yesterday, just a sort of bizarre move out of the States. So it's not it's not as though we are through things and back to good times. But I did want to start with that very positive local note, because our economy here in Barrie is one that has outperformed most of the other urban areas in Canada. Locally at the city, we of course passed our recovery plan at the end of June. We have rolled out a number of those programs, and the Chamber here has been a remarkable partner all the way through this, and continues to be in delivering our Hey Local and other initiatives to try and support getting businesses online and support buying local. And of course, I think something I've said before in these calls is that, you know, if there's something that distinguishes our collective response to COVID as Canadians, it's that we really rallied to the cause, and we have made a collective effort which has stopped the spread. In our community, the city of Barrie has seen just one new case of COVID-19 in the last 10 days. We're getting awfully close to that 2 weeks without a new case number that you've heard talked about by Dr. Williams and others around the country. I don't think anybody for a moment feels that means we can let our guard down, that there isn't a risk of a second wave, and as we get into the fall that risk could grow. I know in the last few days as well, there's been a great deal of discussion around the school reopening plan and what impact that may have on both the kids and the economy. Let's not forget that's a very significant piece, because if people have to take care of their kids, they can't go to work, and many people may not feel safe given what's going on. So that's a real question mark that I think we all face looking forward about 6 weeks, what's going to happen in September. I would, I guess, direct those on the call to our COVID-19 page on the city's website, where there's such a long list of initiatives, and they're linked to the Chamber's initiatives, the Burnick Center's initiatives, the work the Sandbox has been doing to support entrepreneurs. And we continue to roll out programs. City Council has recessed for the last 2.5 weeks. I had a special meeting on my favorite issue, beach parking. That was 2.5 weeks ago, and that later became a bigger issue. But we have another staff report coming on measures at Barrie's beaches on Monday night. Hopefully we can stop talking about the beaches pretty soon, though, because there's some other very important and much more significant in many ways matters on Council's agenda for Monday. One of those includes allowing businesses to use Barrie parks to do business. This was an idea that came out of the consultation for the recovery plan in May. And we are trying to get that rolled out while there's still time to allow businesses to take advantage of the good weather over the next couple of months, and hold anything from yoga classes to other business events outdoors in our parks on a temporary basis, recognizing that what we need right now to be safe is space. And while we can use that outdoor space, while we might have blanched at commercial activity in public parks in the past, now we know we need to do everything we can in the coming months to help the economy recover. So I think there's been a lot of creativity that's gone into those initiatives, and I really encourage everybody on the call, if you haven't already, to check out the city's web pages with regards to those various programs. And again, on Monday night and probably on Tuesday following in the media cycle, you will hear more about some of those coming initiatives. So I will leave it there. I'm feeling good this morning about our economy, I have to say. I mean, the jobs report is wonderful to see, and I want to close on that, because having talked to so many business owners, toured some Zoom calls, you know, there's been so much creativity, so much effort to adapt and continue to do business, and sometimes retool, or sometimes shift the service model, crash modernize your business practices. I hope that many of those things are the sustained basis for a strong recovery. And certainly we have some encouraging numbers today locally to say that maybe that is underway. So I'll leave it there, Todd, and thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Appreciate the update from the city's perspective. Up next, our MPP from Barrie, Innisfil, Andrea Khanjin. Morning, Andrea.
Good morning. Well, thank you again for having me. It's been a very interesting time at the provincial level. As you know, speaking of job numbers today, it was something, provincially we're very concerned about. It's one of the key pillars as to why we launched the Ontario Together website, and have been making different investments in people who could produce PPE or other manufacturing efforts, and really helping people retool their business so we can still have a thriving economy. And a great example, and I'm sure MPP Doug Downey will talk about it, MPC and Oro is reaching its a record mark on shields, and there's a great story there, which is right in our region. But there's lots of examples of businesses and innovation automation I've mentioned many times where they've retooled and they're helping. But all around, businesses have really tried to do what they can, and that effort will continue. You've seen the Premier touring around and showing the example of the continued example of the Canadian spirit and the new Canada United campaign that's going on to support all businesses. Certainly the latest news, and the mayor had talked about it with the tariffs, is concerning. And provincially, we did put out a statement in opposition of the increased raise in tariffs, and certainly we'll continue opposing that and doing what we can as a large manufacturing province at that table. But we're focused right now not only just on the economic things and getting the economy up and going, whether it's through the Ontario Together Fund. It's also our tourism sector. We put together a tourism economic development recovery fund. It's about $1.5 million, where we're helping different art galleries set up if they can open safely. Certainly there's going to be tourist attractions that would not be able to open. Santa's Village, for instance, came up a few days ago. But certainly others to help them retool and open safely to boost that kind of economic impact we have here locally is still ongoing. So that's great news. And of course, I know the latest and news was with for parents was really the fact that daycares are going to be fully opened in the fall. And of course, school is going to be back in session. And certainly a message I just want to drive across is the reason the announcement was made break in the summer is to give parents the ability to prepare, whether it's their work schedules or prepare how their household operates, because we recognize as much as our economy is starting to pick up again, we might lose that progress come fall if parents are now choosing between what they can do and they've exhausted the grandparents and other family members that may be helping out right now. So that was really important. And of course, the safety of children in schools. Let's not forget when Ontario was one of the first jurisdictions to close schools. And we did that. It wasn't a light decision. It was done for safety. So all students will be, from grades 4 and up, will be required to wear a mask. If they happen to lose one, which happens with little kids or any kids, they will be provided one at school. And of course, teachers will have that equipment. We've hired 1,300 more custodians to help clean schools, 500 nurses that will be on site at the schools to help as well. And all of this was done through the leading expertise of medical scientists and medical experts. Certainly wasn't done by politicians who are not medical experts, but by those who have that knowledge. And so that's really, really key and important. And for parents who are still, if they have children that are immune compromised or there's not as big of a comfort level there, certainly there's alternatives like e-learning that can be done. We've made a lot of progress on e-learning. I know part of that Ontario Together Fund was proposals for people who can, put together some sort of a portal or a device to help with the online learning. So we've certainly made strides there, but that's going to be a big game changer for the fall session, of course. And one thing I'd lastly like to pitch is I sent a letter to the chamber, but finance committee at the Ontario level of government is still sitting. I'm on that committee. And so we're going to be, we just finished the infrastructure sector and we're going into the small and medium-sized business sector. So if you are interested in appearing before that committee, I've sent all the details to the chamber, so connect with them. They'll walk you through the process. But basically think of it as a mini pre-budget consultation type of committee. And so, pitch any ideas you have, any concerns you have with reopening the economy. We've really heard it all on that committee, and we'd like to hear from you. There's been a lot of federal things mentioned as well. And certainly we've been gathering that together in our interim report. Some will be putting together a final report. But it's been a phenomenal committee all around, and we're really feeding back a lot of that things we hear and ideas we hear straight to the Jobs and Recovery Committee that we have struck as a government. So it's been really good. So I do encourage folks to participate and testify. The last witness we had locally on the infrastructure sector was from Brotech. Many people know Jerome Horowitz. And so of course, the Bruce refurbishment is a huge economic factor for this whole province. And Barrie has a big footprint to play in that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrea, for the update. All right, up next, our Attorney General and MPP of Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, Mr. Doug Downey. Morning, Doug.
You nailed it today, Todd. You got it perfect.
After all these tries.
No, I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you everybody for joining us to have a conversation about where we're at. And there are still a ton of things going on, as Andrea alluded to. I mean, the committees are still sitting. People have this perception that the politicians take the holidays, and that's just not actually happening. Certainly not this year, as we plow forward. It's the House sat, the legislature sat until July, into July, quite a ways, and we go back shortly after Labor Day on the 14th. But in the meantime, we're doing things like the committees and implementing a lot of the pieces that we queued up through legislation. So one of the things that we know is it's not just businesses that have had a hard time through COVID, but it's also the nonprofits, the legions, and a lot of organizations that do so much in our communities. So the Premier announced the other day an $83 million fund for nonprofits. They can apply for grants up to $150,000. So I want to get that word out, because it's really important that we support that sector in every way possible. On the tourism side, we're seeing the minister still announcing and doing grants, because even if an event isn't happening, they still have some baked in costs year to year, and we want to make sure that they're there next year. I did a Zoom call actually before this one this morning, and we were talking about different events that would normally go on and how they're trying to hold together their infrastructure so that next year they're here. So definitely, if you want information on that fund, you can check with Andrea's office or mine, and we can get you queued up for it. Happy to help with that. We're seeing the economy shift as we open, and it's everything on every level. So it's provincially, you're starting to see in the landlord-tenant world where hearings are starting again, evictions are starting to be put in place. The previous ones that were on hold. I know a lot of small business people happen to be landlords as well, and so they're getting double hit. And so we're trying to turn the dial on that. Municipally, I think bus fares have come back online because you put safety precautions in for fare collection. So you're seeing it at all levels where we're slowly turning the dial to move back. I'm thrilled with the job numbers, Jeff. I hadn't seen them. That's awesome. That's really good stuff. But I can tell you, we have employers, good employers, who are looking for employees. MPC is looking. Andrea mentioned they're about to make their 10 millionth face shield. And they weren't making face shields before COVID. That is a phenomenal number. They're always looking for quality people. And South Medic, she's still, they're still looking for people. We've got Napoleon looking for people. These are good jobs. They're local. You can get to them on the bus route for most of them. And people are struggling. So it's, but we do know, and Andrea touched on it, we know that daycare and schools are an important part of getting people to the jobs, because they need to make sure that their kids are in a safe space. And obviously we've rolled out the options and the plans early on. You're now starting to hear the school boards wrestle with how they're going to do it. And that's how this should work. We've set some general parameters. People are starting to make choices, and some teachers will be comfortable teaching in the classroom with all the safeguards. Some teachers, for personal reasons, may not be able to, but it doesn't mean they can't contribute. They can then be helping on the electronic portion of it, on the online portion of it. So we want to harness all the talent that we have in the system, make sure it lands in the right space so students get the best experience possible and go back to learning. Because I'll be honest, it's not just about learning for the kids. There's a real mental health component to this. When kids aren't playing sports, they're not interacting with other kids. We're starting, it's okay. Summer's easier to manage, but I do worry as we go into the colder part of the year, which, touch wood, isn't too close, but but yeah, so there's a real effect there. This is just a personal piece, and then I'll stop. I was out shopping with my daughter. She's 13, almost 13. And beside a lot of the registers were baskets of masks and so it's interesting because we as adults see this as sort of a moment in time. For them, it's become a reality. And so they're like, hey, I like that mask, or I like that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in schools, the fashion statements of masks. But look, we've got a lot of work still to do. We are not through this thing. We are all hanging together, federal, provincial, municipal. That cooperation level is still just excellent. And I can tell you on the beaches issue, which we don't have to drag into, that was a good example where, we started down a road, but communication helped. It landed where we collectively wanted it to at the end. It could have been a whole different conversation. So the openness of the mayor to have that conversation right away and try to work through the system was, that spirit is really going to get us through and get everybody, keep them safe and get us open. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Up next, MP Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, Doug Shipley. Morning, Doug.
Thank you, Todd, and good morning, everyone. Thank you to the Chamber for putting this together. Sorry I had to miss the last one. I was away on a little vacation, which was kind of nice. We're pretty limited these days on where and what we can do to vacation. I got an opportunity to go to the far north of Ontario. I'd always wanted to be up in that way, so that kind of checked off the bucket list. So it was a good little trip up there. But so not a lot has changed since the last meeting as far as the federal stuff. Probably one of the most important and pressing things is that the CERB is coming to an end. That has been announced. The last date for CERB is going to be September 26th. It's going to be rolled now into a hybrid EI system. We don't have all the complete details on that, but that's a very important factor that's going to be coming up. As I said, September 26th, it has been announced CERB will be ending and everything's going to be rolled into a hybrid EI system. So that doesn't mean everybody all of a sudden is going to be dropped from all the programs. It's just going to be changing over to the more commonly referred to as the EI system, and everything's going to be rolled into that again. As we get more details, we can obviously discuss that in our next meeting or share those with the Chamber too. A couple of my colleagues this morning did mention that aluminum tariff. That is going to be obviously an issue and a concern. As we all know, they're heading into election cycle very, very promptly in the States. I'm sure there's some saber rattling going on, so people want to get some headlines and look like the tough leaders, and sometimes that's the way they do it, is by going out and trying to, I won't use the word bully, but I just did, other countries and show they can get their way. We are expecting our response this afternoon, being Canada's response. We'll be putting that out obviously as soon as we can get that. I know the Chamber is obviously very interested in that. This is something that could highly affect us. Aluminum is a big component of our industry. So right across Canada, especially Ontario and Quebec, greatly. So we'll be looking forward to seeing our response on that this afternoon. One of the other things I know Doug Downey mentioned this morning was the new $83 million from the provincial government, which is going to be great news, Doug, and congratulations to you and your counterparts. Yesterday, I had a meeting out in Elmvale with the Floss Agricultural Society, who run many things, but one of them is the Elmvale Fall Fair. And these fall fairs are struggling right across, across Canada, but I got a lot of the information yesterday. They had done up a great booklet for us, for the fall fairs in the area, and they indicated that they had been discussing with Barrie too. And some of these fall fairs who are not going to be putting on this year are going to need some help, or they're not going to be there. This year would have been Elmvale's 160th fall fair, which is just unbelievable. They're in a bit of a special bind out there because they have the arena, the community center, on their property. So they're still responsible for some hard costs. So even though the fair's not going on, they're still needing to deep in it. They don't have deep reserves, and that's going to be a bit of a problem. And I know Doug and I have already reached out. We will be talking later about that. But it's great to see that the provincial government has stepped up on that to try and help out some of those. Hopefully, it's going to help out some of those fairs in that situation. I've been led to believe that's the type of thing that funds are going to be for. And the last thing, it's interesting, just on a bit of a side note, and I know Todd and Paul know this well. I've been quite involved in hockey for many, many years in Barrie. First year I'm not coaching. And as Doug mentioned, with sports going into winter, some of the biggest calls and emails and texts I'm getting right now is when and if and what's going on with hockey. It really is, and not just hockey, but fall sports, because we are seeing that too. Teens, kids, children need to be active, need to get out. We're seeing that. And that's one of the biggest questions I'm getting out right now. The rumor mill is just rampant about what's going on with minor hockey. But I tell everybody, just sit back, relax. They will announce it in time. But that is one of the biggest questions I'm getting, probably being so involved in hockey for so many years in Barrie. But Doug, Mr. Downey, you were exactly right. Fall is coming. People are starting to get back to a little bit normal. They're also seeing the numbers have dropped so much in Barrie, which is great news, that now, though, they're getting anxious and want to get back to their normal life, where we do have to still keep things under wrap so we don't spike again. We've obviously seen what's going on south of the border. We don't want that to happen up here. But obviously Canada, Ontario, and specifically Barrie is a hockey town. It's nice to see Mayor Lehman. I see some of the rec centers are reopening. Some ice is going back in. We're hearing that. But there's not a lot of back-to-play scenarios. Hopefully that'll be coming out soon to relieve some people's stress levels. But other than that, not a lot new on the federal level. Thanks again for having me back again, and nice to be here, and we'll see what questions people had today. Thanks, Todd.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. MP John Broussard from Barrie Innisfil sends his regrets, but assures us that Doug is more than capable of handling that aspect of it. So up next will be President of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Rocco Rossi. Morning, Rocco.
Good morning, Todd. Thanks again for the invite and your worship. It's always a pleasure to be in the economic engine of Canada. Those numbers are fantastic. But again, the big caution is this continues, even though it's phase 3, it continues to be an amber light, not a green light, right? We want to be more vigilant, if anything, not less vigilant, so that we don't return. And one of the things I want to encourage everybody on this call and everybody to tell everybody, this, aside from mass distance washing, is a key tool in the fight against COVID. And you don't see it, but there's this little app that I just signed up for, downloaded, it's free off the App Store. It's COVID Alert. And you load that up, and that is going to be a key tool in tracking and tracing, which is absolutely important as we reopen more of the economy. And as we think about, everyone is stressed about schools, is stressed about daycare, et cetera, rightfully so. Well, this isn't just the government's responsibility or somebody else's responsibility. It's ours. So we need to do everything we can. And one of the things is to download that app. 1.1 million Canadians have done so. We need that number to be 20 million in order to really give our medical frontline workers the tools they need, that anytime someone tests positive, we very quickly find out who else has been in their circle who was potentially contacted. The privacy protection on this is incredible. You all have Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all kinds of other things that have way more information about you, and none of them is going to protect your backside the way this does. So I cannot stress enough getting that word out. On the aluminum tariffs, tariffs are tariffs. They're a horrible thing, and after we've negotiated YMCA, you thought we'd seen the end of these things. I do want to put it in a little bit of context, though. Of the over $2 billion in aluminum trade coming out of Ontario into the US, this category that Trump has put the tariff on represents about 16 million bucks. It is an enormous issue in Quebec that has primary producers of aluminum. So make no mistake, this is a big issue for Canada, but this is Trump being Trump. He's in Ohio, it's a swing state. He wants to send a message that day. He shows he's the big, protecting guy. We We have to respond, but we have to, importantly, not rise to the bait, because at the end of the day, we're a trading nation. We benefit from a more open global trading environment, and it's very, very important for us to do everything in our power to continue to protect that. Big shout outs, all levels of government have been doing awesome work. That CERB announcement, really important. It ties back to what Doug was saying about companies looking for workers, and was delighted to see that the wage subsidy program has been extended to December. The down and the readjustment on the CERB into EI to rebalance, so that you always have a circumstance where it is economically more advantageous to be at work than to be at home, and to do it safely and appropriately. So that's important. We continue to see real issues around the rent subsidy program. It has been extended to the end of August. But quite frankly, it's very much a mixed bag, and there are a lot of companies, similar companies, different landlords, different circumstances. Some get the subsidy, some don't, because of applications. This is not the outcome any of us want, and is not the outcome that the funds are there to produce. But to Doug's point, it's a really unfair burden that's been put on to landlords as well. So this is one where we need that much vaunted collaboration between levels of government to sit down again, have a look at this, and see how we can improve that to have a real big impact for our members and for the economy as a whole. Big shout out, mention about Bruce and how important that is to the Ontario economy. Aside from being an economic jewel for Ontario, Bruce's leadership has been phenomenal on the community side, not just in terms of donations of PPE to frontline workers and work that they've done in the community with all kinds of charities, but together with several partners, they've launched Strength in Numbers, which is basically a large company buying group for PPE that then, through Strength in Numbers, small, medium-sized businesses can go to that website and can source PPE at the price and availability that Bruce and the big guys get it. So this is an enormous opportunity. Everyone should be jumping on that. And finally, Canada United. There are lots of buy local programs across the country, and Barrie, no slouch in this area at all in terms of what's been being done here. But what Canada United does is it's brought together chambers of commerce from coast to coast to coast, other business organizations, Retail Council, Restaurants Canada, CFIB, together with over 50 iconic Canadian brands led by RBC. So it's not just about promoting buy local, dine local, visit local, celebrate local, leading up to an incredible final weekend of August where we're encouraging everyone to go and help out, show local some love, because they've always been there for us. But also every time we celebrate something local, where you got your first job, where you celebrate that special occasion, where you bought your first bike, what licensed patio you go to celebrate a great occasion. Each time that happens with hashtag Canada United, RBC kicks in 5 cents into a small business recovery fund that at the end of this is going to generate $5,000, up to $5,000 grants for small businesses to pay for PPE and restructuring costs and reopening safely. Big shout out to the #1 Canada United videographer in the world, MPP Andrea Khanjin, who's been doing a phenomenal tour through great Barrie businesses. Take a look at what she's doing. Doug, I challenge you to do half as well. Doug, absolutely, show some love to your favorite businesses, and let's get this happening. And a special shout out to the mayor, because he's joining a group of mayors across the country to officially proclaim that final weekend in August, Canada United weekend. And we're so delighted to have his support and the support of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce always. That's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Rocco. And Jeff, you'll probably appreciate this. I think it was more of a Simon and Garfunkel hit. Wasn't it the boxer? Is that what we're going to call Andrea now after yesterday's photo shoot? All right. With that, we're going to go into our Q&A. So just a reminder to submit your questions to the moderator, and I will ask those of our panelists. And just one quick thing before we get into the questions, and Jeff had given us a brief update on our numbers, and I found it interesting. I was reading them this morning myself also. And back in May, our unemployment rate across the country was at a staggering 13.7%. And in May, in the midst of COVID, we reintroduced 289,600 jobs. In June, we brought back 953,000 jobs. And then in July, I'm just looking for my number here, July, we gained 419,000 jobs, which took us down to 10.9%, or for the city of Barrie in our region, as Mayor Lehman said, we're very fortunate to be down to 9.7%, one of the best in the entire country. And I think those numbers could be way better in our region and across the country, and we've all talked about it. We need people to work. There are plenty of jobs out there. There's lots of employers seeking employees. And on a personal note, and I'm hearing it from a lot of businesses, we believe that the CERB is a big factor as to why, these places cannot fill the voids that they have. I was dealing with a company that makes specialized wood products, and they said they're short 30% on their staffing. And this is their time to generate it. They say the winter's fairly quiet for them. They need the people, they need them now, and they just can't access them. So, I'm glad to see that they're going into a combined thing between CERB and EI, but I was hoping it'd be a little sooner, but at least there's a deadline for that. With that, we'll go right into our first question. And it's an interesting one because this is probably from a parent's perspective here, but we're hearing certainly a lot of this week from a business perspective. Will job protection be extended or expanded to protect parents who choose to homeschool this fall? So, of course, I say that appears to be from an individual that's asking that. We're getting a lot of businesses that are asking, the opposite. Will businesses be protected, saying, do we have to save these jobs, or can we go out and replace these individuals that are making a choice? And when I say a choice, it's certainly not an easy thing. Some parents are certainly scared about getting their children back to school, while others, we're hearing they just can't wait to give them a kick in the butt and get them out the door. So you're hearing both perspectives of that. But from an employer's perspective right now, who are suffering, saying we're having trouble getting employees back into the place, what's going to happen for employers for this, or has that been talked about yet? And I'll throw that out to anybody.
Doug, do you want to start, or do I?
I'll start. It's tricky for a couple of reasons. The first spot to look is to see what your employment arrangement is. So first you look at the private part, which you may have stuff in a collective agreement, or you may have something that sets out what those arrangements can be, what your leave can be, all that kind of thing. So I would always start there. I would always start with what the original deal was that you struck with your employer, or that your union did, or whatever your situation is. For smaller businesses, it's usually not that sophisticated. It's usually not written out in big collective agreement type language. We're trying to find that balance is really the short answer. We're moving to make sure that daycare is there. We're moving to make sure that schools are operating. And as people move through those choices, it's like you mentioned in the question itself, there's a trade-off, there's a balance. And so we're trying to strike that balance without being heavy-handed and tipping it too far the other way.
Okay. You want to say anything, Andrea, or we're?
What I would just quickly add there is just the Ministry of Labor line, because every case, like Doug Downey was explaining, every case is so different. You'd have to talk to your employer. You can always call the Ministry of Labor 1-800 number just to get your specific case out there. Generally speaking, if you'd have to take care of a child, the Protecting Workers Act would cover you. But again, the caveat there is every case is so different.
Okay. I'm reading a different question here, and I'll have to work more into it. But I'll start off with, I have 2 children, one in school, one in daycare. If my school-age child's class is quarantined, I will have to take my younger child out of daycare. Who will be expected to pay for the daycare days I'm missing at the daycare? Will I be working from home with kids and paying for daycare, or will daycare have to sacrifice the costs and risk bankruptcy? And when I say I had to lean into this one, because there was a question previously that ties into it, and it was asking about that, you know, on days when your child is sick, you're still required to pay for the daycare facilities, even though your child's sick, which I understand they're running a business, they're counting on that revenue. What happens if they're forced to close, or there's a quarantine and the children can't be there? Will parents still be forced to pay the bill? Or will there be some help out there?
Yeah, I have a
Touch that
supplement
ball,
for
yeah.
that. A supplement for that, just to add it in. Recent announcement of the YMCA closing in Barrie, and really a couple of other areas. They do a lot of day before and after programs, and that kind of ties into this, where you're going to have a lot of problems where people were dropping kids off before and after, and now that they're not going to have the flexibility within their schedule to be able to do that. So especially if a kid gets sick. So anyways, it's a combined problem, but these are the kinds of things that are really coming up in our conversations with businesses they plan to reopen.
So I guess I'll go first on that one. What I would just say is just the sick day policy as it stands now, there's been no changes made to that for daycares, simply because they all operate individually. So that wouldn't, there's no change currently on the, in the works. But I would say is like, let's not forget that when this first happened, the provincial government did put out that $200 application that you can get for your children to just take care of some of the cost of kids staying at home. So certainly, you know, I see an idea out of this, and the idea would be, you know, whether or not it's worth pitching something similar like that. It doesn't currently exist. It's not a bad idea, but I think if we start getting into the trying to over-regulate sick day cover policies, we might lead to unintended consequences of more daycares actually closing. Because we saw when the province did reopen more daycares and they had more stringent provisions for cleaning, et cetera, a lot of them just weren't ready to open. And so as a, you know, for the safety of all children and for the comfort of all parents that they know that they have a place to put their child, there's been a balanced approach reached here, which is we still have to have clean daycares, but come September 1st, there's no longer limits of how many kids can be there. Obviously with safety practices are in place, but that guarantees more spots for parents and gives them the assurance that there's a safe place to put their children. And then before and after school program is going to be resuming September 1st as well, again, with the right safety practices. So it's our expectation that all these places are going to be open and they're going to follow safety practices. And if they do have to close down, we haven't had that scenario yet, but with public health, there's clear guidelines and provisions put in place there. The financial cost of it hasn't been explored yet.
Okay.
And I'll just touch on 2 small pieces that relate to daycare because it seems to be of interest today. We also protected spaces. So people in the queue so they didn't lose their space because they were taking extra precautions. And the other piece, we brought in a tax credit last year called the CARE tax credit, and it's a fairly substantial credit for parents to have care for the children. It does not have to be institutional care. So definitely keep an eye on that as a way of receiving some sort of support, but it's not a COVID support. It's a general measure that we took before COVID.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Okay. How long do you expect that the Canada United Grant application approval process will take? When we apply after the end of the month, how soon could we expect to hear back and receive the funds?
It's going to be very quick.
It'd be quick, okay.
It will depend in part on how big the fund becomes. Obviously, it's you know, we're not the government, so we don't have a printing press, and you know, do the math if it's $2 million, if it's $3 million, if it's $4 million, and we'll do. And it also has to be spread on a per capita basis across the provinces, because RBC and the other donors have made that obviously a requirement. So, but we expect it to be very quick. It's a very simple simple process, and people will be allowed to include receipts of PPE purchases back to the middle of March in the application.
Okay, thank you. With many companies looking for employees and the skilled labor shortage already in place prior to COVID, is there additional funding being put forward to help employers train up new staff or to help employers on taking on more apprentices?
I know that we did it. There was a program, and it's not at the tip of my tongue. I know, as you know, we've changed the apprenticeship ratios. We've been working in that space. Colleges and universities are fairly aggressively being able to pivot because we're changing how they register new courses, new programs. To take what's sometimes a 3-year process to qualify a program can now be crunched down as quickly as 6 months, which is quite fast in that world. So we're trying to do some things to make that happen. In terms of actual funds, there's local, like your community development corporations, your different organizations. The province puts money through them to match youth with employers, and often it's a fairly high subsidy. So I can get you more details. I just cannot remember the name of the program.
Is it Skills Ontario you're thinking of?
Yeah, I think it falls under that. Yeah, but we can get you more information if you contact Andrea.
There's also grants for subsidies for apprentices, for tools and so on that the Minister of Labor has introduced. This is also an area of keen interest at the Chamber, obviously, and the whole issue of skilled labor also hits on the issue of interprovincial trade barriers. Because, for instance, if you're an apprentice working towards your certificate of qualification to be a journeyman, and you're in Fort Frances, Atikokan, or a smaller community in Northwest Ontario, and you spend a couple summers working construction in Winnipeg, the time that you spend working in Winnipeg doesn't count towards your CFQ in Ontario, as though a 2x4 in Winnipeg is different than one in Thunder Bay. And this is something we absolutely have to figure out. We accept bachelors of arts and science from any province and courses from any province. The training of electricians, plumbers, carpenters, boilermakers, et cetera, is something we need to sort out, and we need to sort out quickly.
Okay, thank you. This one's probably geared more towards Mayor Lehman. It says, rec facilities are now open without change room access, which works for swimming in the summer. What is the plan for when the weather gets colder? Is the city working on change room options for when it's too cold to still go outdoors while you're wet from the pool?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you today what the plan will be. I mean, we're looking at trying to do obviously a limited access version. One of the issues obviously is cleaning in a change room where people are using it for that purpose. So we do want to get there. We're lucky in a way that today, it's still kind of feasible to go to the rec center and go for a swim and towel off and leave before you're fully dry, kind of thing. But we know that won't work in December. It probably won't really work in October. So yeah, look for more on that. And while we're on the rec centers, the Sadlin Center is scheduled to start casual ice use later in August. And then we want to bring East Bayfield back about 10 days later, the first week of September. So there will be more capacity, and watch for more details as we start to be able to use change rooms and otherwise in the fall.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jeff. And Mr. Shipley, back into the hockey theme of things. Not sure if you're aware, the OHL announced yesterday that tentatively they're going to begin their 64-game season schedule on December 1st. And the notice came out from the Colts that depending on the social distancing aspect and other rules in place by the government, it actually may be season ticket holders only that are allowed inside the facility. So time will tell on that one, just to catch up to your hockey from earlier.
Todd, if I could jump into that too, because I know I've had calls with this too, and I actually spoke with Howie Cam the other day about it. One of the issues with them is going to be the 3 American teams. That's going to be one of the big stumbling blocks. as we all know, the Blue Jays weren't allowed to cross the border. So that is going to be one of the issues, is there's 3 American teams. They're really having a tough time trying to decide how they're going to run a league when there's 3 teams that may not be able to participate. So that's going to be a stumbling block. We'd all like to see them back. It's a great thing for the city and a great thing to have them going again. It's a good driver in that area too for the restaurants and things, but that is definitely a stumbling block down there.
Okay, thanks, Doug. I'll read 2 questions here because they're both tied into the YMCA and they're similar. One is, do you know if the Y is still planning to build their new facility in Barrie? And the second part of that is, it was announced that the YMCA is closing in Barrie. Excuse me. What is being done with the facility that is being built downtown? Do you want to touch on that, Jeff, or do you know enough yet?
Yeah, I'll start and then I'll throw to Doug Downey. And I want to give a shout out to Doug for the work he's been doing with the Y on this file. I spoke to Rob Armstrong, who's the CEO of the Y yesterday. So the facility on Grove Street, frankly, was going to close anyway, as we know, with the new facility being built, but they wanted to try and keep it open until then. Financially, they've been devastated by the impact of COVID. No surprise there. Just to Paul's question earlier, it's my understanding that the Y is still going to try and maintain as much of their daycare and after-school programming as they can. And in fact, some of the people that will lose their jobs at the Barrie and Aurelia facilities hopefully will be able to move over to some of the in-school programming. So in terms of the new facility, Doug may have more current information, and he and I are hopefully going to speak about this a little bit today, but they are still waiting on their federal application to hear on the status of that request. But yes, it's full speed. From their point of view, it's full speed ahead. They want to build the facility. If all of that funding all comes together, the fundraising has been tremendously successful. This community has supported the Y already. So my understanding is absolutely the goal is to continue and build that downtown facility.
Yeah, and I'll just reinforce that. That's the goal. Just in recreation generally, we were with the applications for the federal money, federal, provincial, municipal money. We were oversubscribed about 10 to 1. And so there's a significant pressure on the federal government, quite frankly, to come back to the table, because this was a program that was in place before COVID. And we saw this kind of impact. So we're pushing on the federal side through the minister's office to minister office to say, look, we need to create another pot because there are so many needs out there. And so whether it's today or it's a month from now or it's 6 months from now, it's the intention of the Y from what I've been told all along that they want to build there regardless. There's a need. I think it's a phenomenal anchor in the downtown. So yeah, and I was supposed to phone Jeff yesterday. We traded phone calls and got cut up. So we'll loop in today and we'll share information and we'll coordinate and we'll get Doug Shipley in there banging the drum down in Ottawa and we'll make something happen if we can.
Perfect. And the next one is an interesting one. We get it from different sides, different levels. I'm a self-employed contractor. If my child is quarantined, will I, by extension, be quarantined from work as well?
Well, yeah. Maybe
I was going to say we're going to take the lead from the medical chief medical officer of health and local public health unit. They're developed guidelines for all sorts of things in terms of workplaces. You see, a couple hundred specific guidelines. We're going to see guidelines in this kind of stuff is really, not to hedge it. I don't know the specific answer, but we're going to get guidance for it.
Okay. You want to say anything there, Jeff? Or you're good now?
That's basically what I was going to say. Yeah, I think these circumstances are going to play out as the school reopening happens. But we continue to try and take the guidance from the local medical officers of health when it comes to the specific circumstances. But really, it's a Ministry of Labor issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And as our time is quickly winding down, we've almost approached the hour, and be respectful of all your time, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do a wrap up, and we'll start with the top of my list. Barrie Mayor Jeff Lehman. Jeff.
I'll just say in closing a thank you to the others on the call, and I'll reinforce what I think Andrea and others said. The levels of government continue to work very well together. There is a lot of problem solving going on, and this will continue. I think, you know, we can be proud of local performance on stopping the spread and on the economy and those sorts of things, and that was a collective effort. But I think the message now, and Rocco really hit on this, is we do need to remain vigilant. We do need to remain gradual and measured in our reopening of the economy and of our community. And we need to continue to look out for one another. I think one of the things that will emerge and is emerging now is that a lot of other things got sort of put on hold or did not get a lot of attention, whether we're talking about social issues or economic issues. Skilled labor is a very good one for the last 6 months, 4 months, 5 months. And we need to start picking up those issues and working on them again as a team. And hopefully we can carry that spirit of collaboration that has marked the COVID period into tackling some of those broader issues, even as we remain vigilant to stop the spread.
Great, thank you, Jeff. MPP, Barrie, Innisfil, Andrea Khanjin.
Well, thank you all again. I really appreciate the Chamber putting together these virtual town halls. It helps us out too, because we study up before these calls. So it reminds us of what we've done and what we're doing. So I want to thank you for that and all the Chamber support. And if you're a small business out there that does want to do a video with myself or Doug or other members of government, do reach out to us as well. I know I've been proactively reaching out, but feel free to reach out to us as well. Happy to stop by. And I just want to end on an interesting statistical point today. It's the 4th consecutive day Ontario has been under 100 in terms of new cases. We've had 88 new cases today, about 118 resolved. And yesterday we tested about 25,000 people. So on the healthcare front, things are moving along, but we can't forget the economic part of this pandemic as well. So thank you to the Chamber and all our businesses who haven't given up. You've been through a lot. And so if I can emphasize more is, support local as much as you can now, because all these businesses are always there to sponsor soccer teams, sponsor our local charity events. And so, they're always there for us. It's time that we're there for them as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrea. Attorney General, MPP, Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, Doug Downey.
Yeah, I just, again, thank everybody. Thank the Chamber and Rocco, who's providing such leadership across Ontario for the Chambers. It's creating a continuity because when we talk to our colleagues, they're trying to send the same message, and certainly the buy local and all that. It's very helpful to have that thread through the province. So just thanks to the Chamber for what you do, and the members who, quite frankly, are the Chamber. So thank you for participating, and we'll see you again shortly.
Great, thank you, Doug. Up next, MP, Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, Doug Shipley.
Thanks, Todd. And thank you, Rocco, at the beginning. It was a bit of remiss of my own part by not mentioning the app, the COVID tracing that has been brought out by the federal government. We do need to get people to download that. So if everybody wants to go ahead and do that, that definitely helps. And thank you, Rocco, for bringing that up and reminding me I should have. One of the things I'd just like to mention, I know there's a lot of struggling businesses out there right across our area. We're all talking about going out and doing our promotional videos. Last week I did one actually at the Legion, and I had a long chat with the president there, Marcel. The Legion is really struggling. I know there's a lot of businesses that are really struggling. If anybody gets a chance to drop by, they're trying to at least do even a barbecue on Fridays to get a little bit of revenue. They're struggling for a few reasons. One is all of their their facilities are completely closed. But the age of a lot of their clientele is causing some concerns with people wanting to come back and get out there. So they are really struggling right now. So if anybody ever gets an opportunity or pass the word to drop by and at least say hello to them on a Friday and try and grab a hamburger, the bar is open downstairs too. But they're always there for when we need them. Poppy sales and Remembrance Day, and now they need us a bit. So if anybody could try to pop by and support them, amongst other local businesses, but the Legion is definitely struggling right now at the one that I think everybody knows on St. Vincent and Cundill Street. And that's it for me. I see it's 10 o'clock, so I won't take any of your time. Thanks again, Todd. We'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Doug. And a side note on that, for those that aren't familiar with it, the Legion also has the cheapest drinks in town. And up next, Ontario Chamber of Commerce President Rocco Rossi.
Well, big thanks again, not to reiterate everything, but download COVID Alert, App Store, free, safe, and is going to help to the single best way to get to recovery, to move from subsidy to growth, is to get revenue into the cash registers of our small businesses, support local, whether it's the Legion, whether it's a boxing club, whether it's your favorite donut store, and help us to celebrate those heroes. Let's show them some love. Hashtag Canada United, GoCanadaUnited.ca. Let's build that fund up to the biggest possible extent. And we're all hit by this crisis together, and we're going to come out of it together.
Excellent. Thank you, Rocco. Up next, Interim Executive Director, Barrie Chamber of Commerce, Paul Markle.
Hi, guys. Again, thanks to all of our participants today. We really appreciate you doing this every couple of weeks. We know that you have busy schedules, and we certainly appreciate that. I just want to touch on a couple of things. All of the links to the COVID app and all the discussion points are in the chat. They're also in the comment section of the Facebook Live. So please go to those, make it easy on yourself to go and get that information. I just want to touch on, obviously staying in tune for the Hey Local program and our webinar on August 11th that'll talk about that. And the other one, we have our, and this hasn't come out in a live fashion yet, but we have our Chamber Member and Friends Golf Day, which will be happening on September 15th at Samoro Golf Links from 9 a.m. till 2:30. It'll be individual tee times, but what we're doing this year is kind of a give back. It's going to be $50. That is in plus tax, but that will include your 18 holes, a cart, and a boxed lunch. We're still going to be doing all the on-course activities and all those other things, but won't have any kind of an activity at the end. But it's a good give back. We are taking sponsorships, so please stay tuned and get in touch. And we'd love to see you out on the 15th before we get stocked in for the winter. It'd be nice to get out and have some fun. And that's it for the end of the day.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. And thank you again to our panelists and for everybody else for joining us and for the work you're doing every day in your businesses. We urge every leader in our community to maintain their focus on slowing the spread of the COVID-19 virus, whatever stage or operations their business may currently be in. The Barrie Chamber is here to help you through this. Please email, call if there's anything you need. And like Paul said, the majority of things, including all the stuff discussed today, you will find on our site. So it's accessible from all the apps, grants, all those things to make it really, really easy for you. But again, call the Chamber if you have any questions or concerns. We'll reach out to the individuals here on your behalf, or all of these people you can reach out to directly. We also implore everyone to please shop local. We need you now more than ever to support our local businesses, whether it is a takeout from a restaurant, gift certificate, or anything else. It will help a business ride out this storm. Get involved in the hashtag Canada United campaign and help to grow that grant fund to further help small businesses. And finally, as business restrictions are slowly lifted, please ensure that you continue to follow all social distancing requirements and take them seriously. These are not to be taken lightly, and our main priority is to keep the community safe and healthy, which is the responsibility of all of us collectively. And with that, I wish everybody a great day and a great long week. And not long weekend, that was last week, but they're all blending now. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for helping. Thanks for participating.